develop new relationships, and then to kind of introduce a topic that is going to take some more digging into to really get to the meat of it. But today we're going to talk about how to get the Google Ads grant, how to get and keep and use the Google Ads grant, which is good for $10,000 a month for churches and nonprofits, and that's $10,000 a month every month, 12 months out of the year, $120,000 a year. It's not in cash though. Okay, so it's an in-kind grant, meaning that's the value of the grant if you were to fully use it and maximize it. So basically the way it works is Google's going to give you credit on their advertising platform called Google Ads. And if you've ever done a Google search and you notice that the top 3, sometimes 4 results are usually paid ads. So your church can get a slot in one of those top results for basically whatever keywords that you choose. So if somebody is searching for a church near me, then your church can create an ad that's triggered when somebody types in those keywords. Or maybe they're going to be searching for something else. They're not necessarily looking for a place to attend church on Sunday, but they want some activities for their kids. So they're looking for summer activities for kids. And so you might have an ad for Vacation Bible School, or Don was telling me about their new kids program coming up in August that it's going to meet on Thursday nights, and you can advertise that because not everybody that's looking for a church knows that they're looking for a church. So let me explain it this way. Last time we had our lunch and we talked about different personas as people are using search engines to look for different things. 4 possible personas for people that are going to visit your church website. One is your current church members and attenders. Another is people that are specifically looking for your church by name, and you can definitely create an ad for the name of your church. But another is people who are looking for a church in your community, but they've never heard of your church. And then a 4th persona is people that are looking for something but never thought about looking for it at a church. So, for example, if they're in financial straits and they need help with their finances, and your church has a Financial Peace University, then you can advertise that on a Google ad. And so basically you can use the ad to promote the work of your church or nonprofit. You can use the ad to enlist volunteers, and you can use the ad to raise funds. So if your church doesn't need money, doesn't need volunteers, and doesn't do any programs or have any events, then you wouldn't need the ads, right? But if you have those things and you would like to do them better, then why not advertise on Google? Because they're going to give you, like I said, $120,000 a year worth of advertising. So, by the way, if you didn't know this, and I just checked just before we started today to make sure that this is still true, you can say a lot of bad things about Google, and there are plenty of bad things to be said about the company, but they are the most trusted brand in the world. They're the most trusted worldwide brand. And as a search engine, people show that they trust Google search results more than they trust recommendations from family and friends, which is a huge thing. So in the advertising world, they talk about word of mouth advertising. Somebody goes and tries a restaurant over here that they really like, and they tell their friends about it. Or they have a bad experience somewhere, and they tell their friends, don't go to that place, it's bad. But what you'll find people doing today is maybe you would tell somebody, hey, we tried this restaurant over here, we really like it, and you should try it out. And what most people will do is they'll take out their phone, they'll search for that restaurant, they'll read the online reviews, they'll find out what time do they open and close, they'll look at their menu to see if it has things that they want, and they'll see what people are saying about it. So in that sense, they trust you in your recommendation, but they're still going to use the internet, and most of the people are going to use Google to look for more information about what's been told to them. So you have the #1 advertising platform in the world. You have the #1 trusted brand in the world. You have the tool that people use and trust more than word of mouth. wanting to give you and your church free advertising on their platform, up to $10,000 a month. But don't let that feel like a limiting factor. What your greatest challenge is going to be spending all $10,000 every month. So in a sense, it's like unlimited advertising, especially if you're just focusing on the local area. It's really hard to come up with enough keywords and ads to spend $10,000 a month in advertising on Google, targeting a local area. Now, you can do some globally targeted ads. You could have maybe a page on your website that's an evangelism page where the gospel is shared, and you can target different parts of the world and say, okay, I want to run this ad for people logging on from the Middle East, for example. So you might have a page that's it could be in English or it could be in different languages, but you could target different parts of the world, or probably not best to target worldwide. That's probably not the best use of the ad, but you can create advertising campaigns for evangelistic resources that you have on your church website for different parts of the world. And by doing that, you could probably eventually maximize your ad clicks. So how do you apply for the Google Ad Grant? Does anybody in here do you already have the Google Ads Grant? Have you ever tried it? You do have it?
Google, but not Google.
Oh, not the grant. Okay. So how do you apply? Well, the first step is you need to make sure that you meet the Google Ad Grant eligibility requirements. We'll talk a little bit about these as we go along. Then it's a few steps here, a few hoops you got to jump through. Then you register your church or nonprofit with an organization called TechSoup. TechSoup just verifies that you're a nonprofit. Then you enroll in Google for Nonprofits. So there's two different things that Google's offering here. They have something called Google Nonprofits, and then they have Google Ad Grants. So you have to enroll in Google Nonprofits first, and then you enroll in Google Ad Grants. And then you have to manage your advertising campaigns. You have to create the ads. You have to make sure that you're following Google's ad guidelines. So let's deal with each of these individually here. To meet the Google ad eligibility requirements, that's very important for churches. You have to have your own 501c3. You have to have 501c3 status. Now, that's not required to be a church. It's not the IRS doesn't require that you be a 501c3 organization, but if you're going to be asking other organizations to provide grant money to you or in-kind grants, they're going to want you to have your own 501c3 designation. So I recommend that anyway for churches. Now, as Southern Baptists, as members of the Florida Baptist Convention, our churches can just simply get a letter from Florida Baptist Convention and say, we are, this church is a 501c3 organization under the umbrella of Florida Baptist Convention. But that doesn't work for Google. They want you to have your own 501c3. So my personal opinion is that it is best for individual churches, and we emphasize the autonomy of the local church. It's best for individual churches to have their own 501c3 designation with the IRS. And if your church doesn't have that, then there's a great company called Start Church, startchurch.com, that can help you to get your own 501c3. If you try to do it on your own, it's pretty tough. It's about 45-page application that you download from the IRS website. You can download it yourself, you can fill it out, you can send it in, and you can get declined. And then they can send it back, and you can fill it out again, and you can send it in, and you can get declined. Or you can go out and hire a lawyer to do it for you. And so Start Church is it's just one company that I recommend. They have two different ways of doing this. One is you can pay them a fee, and somebody on their team will actually fill out the application for you. Or they have a tool that if you ever use TurboTax, I use TurboTax. It's easier for me than to try to make sense of the tax form itself. So TurboTax kind of has an interview format. So they have a tool like that. I think it's about $200 for that tool. And it just goes through and asks you a series of questions. And then when you answer those questions, it automatically fills out the form based upon your answers. It's a neat tool. About $200 for that. About $1,800 if you go and get somebody to do it for you. But so that could be, that could take some time for a church to get your 501c3 status. But I recommend that you do that anyway, not just to get the Google Ad Grants. There are some organizations that are not eligible. They may be nonprofit, but they're not eligible to get the grants. Hospitals or medical facilities, schools, and government agencies. Also, what I didn't mention in here is political organizations. If you're a nonprofit political organization, you don't qualify either. But if your church has a school and you want to get the ad grants for your school, you can't get them for the school, but you can get the grant for an organization that raises funds for the school. So it's just kind of a fine line there. So you can get the grant for your church, and if you promote the school on your church website, then you can use that to advertise for the school. And then the other requirement is you have to have a high quality website. So bear in mind here, the ad that you create on Google, the purpose of that ad is to drive people to your website. And so Google doesn't want to give the grants to organizations that have really bad looking websites. Or really bad websites. So you have to make sure, number one, that your website is secure, that you're using HTTPS instead of HTTP, and that's something you would have to talk to your web host about. Make sure that your website is secure, that all of the data on your website is encrypted, especially if somebody's entering in their own data. You want to make sure that your website talks about what you do as a church. And so somebody from Google is actually going to put eyes on your website, and they're trying to figure out, when you apply for the grant, they're going to ask you, what are you going to use these ads for? And you can say, well, we're going to, promote our philanthropic work in the community. Okay? If they go to your website and they don't see anything about philanthropic work in the community, then they might deny your application. So your website needs to... I just recommend that you have, to meet that requirement, that you have a page on your website that says community impact. Because Google is a secular company, they may not necessarily see the impact of preaching the gospel. You say, well, we preach the gospel. The person looking at reviewing your website might not even know what that is or what that means. But if you talk about we are making our community a better place by bringing the message of hope and compassion to people who are hurting, bringing them into a relationship with God and with other people. So you explain what that is, you explain how that benefits people. So that's what they're going to be looking at, is what does your church do that actually benefits people? If your church has a food pantry or a clothing distribution, if you have people in your church that go out and work on people's houses, those kinds of things, it's a lot more tangible. It's easier for them to understand that you're doing something to serve the community. So you just want to make sure you're talking about that on your website, and that your website is a decent looking website that's not scary. It doesn't look like it's going to grab people's personal information and put it out there on the dark web or something like that. So there have been organizations that were initially turned down because their websites were kind of outdated. They didn't have current information about the church's work in the community or how that's benefiting the community. Any questions about this so far? Yes, sir.
If you have Faith Life, your website through them, will that be within the parameters?
It should be, yes. I don't think there's anything about Faith Life that would not work. Yeah. Good question. Any others?
Are you talking about the hosting of the site through Faith Life?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Churches that are a part of our association can get a Faith Life website. Jackie can tell you more about how that works, but they actually host websites. They actually have their own content management system on Faith Life to help you create a website. All right. So to get a TechSoup validation token, when you apply to become a part of Google nonprofit, they're going to want to confirm that you are indeed a nonprofit organization. So you want to make sure you have your IRS 501c3 designation, and then you're going to follow these steps. By the way, at the end, I'll show you a place where you can go and get all this information. So I know this might be a lot to write down right now, but you go to TechSoup.org, you'd register as a nonprofit, you get an email response from them. They say it can take up to 30 days. What I found is it usually only takes 2 or 3 days. Then you log into your TechSoup account, you copy your TechSoup token, which at the bottom of the screen here you'll see there's just a string of numbers and at your church name. is going to be what your token will look like. So when you create your Google nonprofit account, they're going to want to know what your TechSoup token is. So TechSoup is just a third party that verifies that you're a nonprofit organization. And then the next step is then enroll in Google Nonprofits. And so you go to google.com/nonprofits. On the top right, you click Get Started. You complete the application. You follow the instructions in the acceptance email. Now, by applying for Google Nonprofits, not only are you eligible to receive the AdWords grant, but there's a lot of other things that you can get. One of them is you can get Google Workspace free for your church. Google Workspace is like a business platform for your church. They can host your website domain name. You can get very specific email addresses for people in your organization. For example, you look at my email address that I give out is mark@ams.mba. Great for us when I was looking at top-level domain. So by the way, a top-level domain would be a .com or .org or .net. I found out there was a .mba top-level domain. And so I was trying to figure out the simplest email address I could come up with. So AMS is by title, Associational Mission Strategist. Mark is my name. So I was able to get the email address mark@ams.lba. And that's all tied into our Google Workspace account. And we get that free because we've got the Google nonprofit status. So we could get multiple email addresses, alias addresses, and then point them to different addresses. For Jackie, we've got office@churches.mba. Now, she already had a Gmail account. We just created an alias account and pointed that to her existing account. And that's what happens too. If you send me an email at mark@ams.mba, if I reply, I'm probably going to reply back with markweibel@gmail.com. But that's a lot harder to remember than mark@ams.mba. So there's a lot of great tools that you can get. Another one, you can get a expanded use of Google Maps or Google Earth. You get longer YouTube uploads. There's a lot of great things that you get in Google Nonprofit. So that's worthwhile just doing that right there. So you follow the instructions in the application, you get an acceptance email, and then you follow those instructions. So then after you have received notification that you are approved for Google Nonprofits, then you can go ahead and choose the tool that you want to use, which in this case is Google Ads. So what you would do is log into your Google Ads account using the acceptance URL. So when you apply for Google Ads, you're going to get a link in the email. It says here, go here to get into your Google Ads account. So you want to make sure that you're using the same email address all the time. You might have multiple email addresses, so don't forget which email address you use. When you apply for TechSoup, you want to use the same email address. When you apply for Google Nonprofits, you want to use the same email address. And when you apply for Google Ads, you want to use the same email address. So you will log into your Google Ads account using the email the link that Google sends you in the email. You're going to set up the billing information. What's very important that you do not enter a credit card number. This is not something that Google's going to charge you money for. So it's not going to be like, okay, we'll give you $10,000 worth of ads, but you still have to give us a credit card. And for the Google Nonprofits, you don't enter the credit card information. And so you skip that part. Then you create an ad campaign. And the way the Google account is structured is you have campaigns, you have ad groups, and you have keywords. So an ad campaign, you define the area that you're trying to reach, the geographic area, the purpose of the ad, and then you create the actual ad itself, and then you choose the keywords that you want to trigger the ad. So you create an ad and an ad campaign. You set your daily budget at $329 per day. So that's how you're going to get your $10,000 a month. It averages out to about $329 per day. So you set a daily budget, and then you wait for an acceptance email. And once again, it says it can take up to 30 days, but usually about 2 or 3 days. That part's fairly simple. When you get the acceptance email, then you're okay to start running your ads. All right? Any questions about that part, by the way? All right, so then you want to manage your Google Ads account correctly. So Google's going to give you this grant, and they're going to give you this account to create your Google Ads. And in just a moment, I'll show you a couple examples of the ads that we use here at MBA. But you're going to have to manage that account. Somebody's going to have to get into that account at least once a month and make sure that the ads are running properly, and make sure that you've got good ad copy, you've got good keywords. Otherwise, what they'll do, if it looks like you're not using it, then they'll remove the grant. You know, they want to give you the grant, but they want you to use it. So if you apply for it and you don't use it, then you lose it. So if you're not ready for it yet, if you don't have somebody that is in your church that can manage the advertising account for you, then you don't want to quite apply for it yet. Yes, sir, Don?
When it comes to the keywords, if you're having several different events a month, can you go and manipulate that several times to update the information?
Yeah, and you can do that several ways. One is you could just create a new ad group for every event that you have. And it takes about 5 or 10 minutes to do that. Or you can have an existing ad group that you're just simply changing out the keywords. But it's probably a better idea to create a new ad group for each event. And you can choose an unlimited number of keywords that trigger the ad, but you want to make sure they're relevant. For example, if you're advertising Vacation Bible School, you can choose keywords like the phrase Vacation Bible School or the letters VBS. And then you can get creative, and you can even choose keywords like fun things for kids to do. So if a mom is searching on her phone, so she picks up her phone and says, "Hey Google, find fun things for kids to do this summer." Well, you've got that phrase, "fun things for kids to do," and it could trigger your ad. And so they may actually get your ad. So you want to be real creative on that. Think about if you want to use the ads to reach people your church isn't already reaching, then think about what would they possibly be searching for that may not necessarily mean a church. They're just looking for something fun for their kids to do. They say, "Oh, this church has Vacation Bible School. Well, that sounds like fun. Yeah, let's do that." So you can get super creative on how you do that. Good question, Don. Okay, so you want to log in every month. You want to only send traffic to your website domain that you applied with. So what I'm saying there is that if you tell Google, Google says, "Hey, what are you going to do with these ads?" And you say, "Well, we're going to use the ads to let people know about what we do. We're going to use them to raise funds. We're going to use them to enlist volunteers." Those are all good things. And so you want to make sure that the ads are actually doing what you said you're going to do. So if you say you're going to do those things, and then all of a sudden you decide, it'd be a good thing for us to do would be to start selling cars, and then you're going to use the ad to sell cars, and it's actually not you guys selling them, but the car dealership down the street who's going to pay you to run the ads to get people to your website to jump. So that kind of stuff's not allowed. So Google's going to look at your application. They're going to give you the grant based upon what you said you were going to do with it, and then you just want to make sure that you do with it what you said you're going to do with it. So you want to be kind of broad too when you fill out that application. And then you want to you have to maintain your advertising account, and this is one of the reasons why you're going to have to check in every month. Your ads need to have a 5% click-through rate. Now, what that means is when your ads start running, it's going to start gathering data, and it's going to show you how many times your ads actually showed up on Google. That's called an impression. And so let's say, for example, if you, in traditional advertising, you take it out and ad in a newspaper. And you could go ask the person at the newspaper office, if I put an ad in a newspaper, how many people are going to see it? And he said, well, I can't tell you how many people are going to see it. I can tell you how many impressions it will get. How many impressions it will get will be how many times the ad is published, So you don't know if that person actually got that newspaper, if they turned to that page, if they saw the ad. On Google, you can get very specific information, and it will show you how many times your ad showed up on a page that somebody was actually looking at. Now, they may not actually look at your ad, but they were looking at that page, and the ad showed up. That's called an impression. And that doesn't use up your advertising budget. If you were paying for the ad, you would not pay just because the ad showed up. You only pay when somebody clicks on it. So that doesn't account towards your budget. So then if somebody clicks on the ad, they'll divide the number of clicks into the number of impressions, and they'll get what's called a click-through rate. So let's say if your ad shows 1,000 times and you get 100 clicks, then your click-through rate would be what, 10%. So on average, well, I shouldn't say average, but the minimum that Google requires for a for-profit entity is a 1% click-through rate. So 99% of the time, for a lot of businesses, these ads aren't even clicked on. They're just there. Nobody's clicking on them. A better business would get a 3 or 4% click-through rate. That 4% click-through rate is considered to be good. So for a nonprofit, they're going to want you to have a 5% click-through rate. And so that means you'll have to go into your account about once a month, and you'll have to remove keywords that are not triggering clicks at least 5% of the time. So what that usually means is those keywords are not as high quality as the ones that are getting a higher click-through rate. So that's why you're going to have to do some managing of your account. And Google will show you, hey, these are the keywords that are having low click-through rates. And then also the keyword quality of your keywords has to be a 2 or higher. So let's say you have a keyword phrase called church near me. So somebody's doing a search for churches in their area. They might use their phone or go to their computer, type in, find a church near me. So you want that to trigger your ad if somebody says church near me. And so Google's going to give that ad keyword phrase a score of 1 to 10 for quality, 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. And that score is based upon relevance. So that keyword that you're using to trigger the ad, it needs to be relative to what the ad actually says, and then relative to what's actually on the website page that they're going to land on. It's called a landing page. So if you say, the phrase "find a church near me" or "church near me," then in the ad itself, it's good to have the phrase "click here to find a church near you," or search for churches in your area, something relevant to that. And then when they go to the page, it needs to be a page that actually has a place where you can find information about churches. So if they determine that the keyword that you have chosen is not triggering ads often enough, or it's not relevant to the ad text or the landing page itself, they'll lower your quality score. And once that quality score gets below 2, below 2, so you have a 0 or a 1, then you want to delete those keywords. So I always try to have keyword quality scores of 2 or higher, and I can talk to you more about that, about how to do that. You also want to complete Google survey. So one of the requirements for having the ads grant is giving Google feedback. So about 2 to 3 times a year, they'll send you a survey. Say, hey, tell us about your Google Ads experience. And so you want to complete that survey. That's part of your agreement in getting the grant. And I get surveys all the time. I don't complete them. I just zip past them. But you want to be sure that you do that. After a while, if you don't do enough surveys, then they'll send you a warning letter saying we're going to pause your ads grant. And then you want to follow Google Ads grant guide. They have online guides that tell you what to do. So I was going to try to get this. They used to have a PDF document that you could download, but I finally found out the best thing to do is just Google it. So if you do a Google search for Google Ad Grants Guide, the top 2 results there are going to be the Ad Grants Policy Compliance Guide. So it'll tell you exactly how to comply by Google's recommendations or requirements. And then the next one is going to be the Ad Grants Activation Guide. That tells you how to get the grant. So you can just do a Google search for Google Ad Grants Guide, and you're going to get those top 2 results. Have a lot of information to use. I want to show you a couple of examples of ads that we're actually running with Marion Baptist Association. And I'm going to step over here to kind of break down what the ad looks like. So this ad right here actually runs if somebody is searching for, church near me. And it doesn't run all the time because there may be another organization that's actually paying for the ad. And since my ad is free, if enough organizations that are actually paying Their ads may get listed higher than this one, but this is an ad I created. It identifies the organization. You don't have to have that, but find a church near you, and this will take you to our church search page. This is actually the address of that page, and then this is just the description here. So this is called the headline, and this is the description. Marian Baptist Association, Ocala, Florida. Excuse me, I was just in California yesterday. Goodness, I'm still stuck in California time. Ocala, Florida, helpful information about churches in Marion County. So if you click on that ad, it'll go to our page, which is a listing of churches that are part of MBA. There is additional information that can come down here called site links and call out actions, things like that. But that's kind of just one example of how an ad may look. I'll show you one more here. How are we doing on time, Jack?
1 minute.
1 minute. All right. This is my last slide. I mentioned Vacation Bible School. On our Marian Baptist Association website, we have a list of churches that are having Vacation Bible School. So I started running an ad, Vacation Bible School, find a VBS near you in the Ocala and Marion County area. Vacation Bible School directory for Ocala and Marion County, Florida, find a Vacation Bible, and it kind of trails off there. That would show up in the whole ad. And then, so what's triggering this? If somebody does a search for VBS or Vacation Bible School or things to do with kids this summer or summer day camp, things like that will trigger this ad. And then it's going to a landing page that we're talking about our churches. Because when I applied for the ad, I told Google we're an association of churches. And what we're doing is we're promoting the work of our churches. So that's why we're able to have these ads that will take them to a page that takes them to other church listings. All right, our time is officially up. But let me ask you if you have any questions. Because we can, I understand if you need to go, that's good. But I do want to make sure your questions are answered and get any ideas that you may have. Yes, Brother Baptist.
No way that they can use the 501c3 as an umbrella. No way.
They don't accept that.
Right. Accept that.
You have to have your own. And I know that's a pain.
I know it's rough.
Yeah.
And I tried once and they denied it 3 times because if you are over 50,000 income for the church, you cannot apply for the the easy program that they have. They charge you $400 and you pay the IRS $400. That's it. They send it to you in 3-4 days.
Yeah.
But the other one, it requires a lawyer.
Right.
But if you said that this $200 application from the organization.
From Start Church?
Yes. Yeah. And if they send you that and you can fill it out and they will approve that $200 is worth it.
Yeah.
Of course they're going to charge the $800 now.
Yeah, and then there's a fee that you pay directly to the IRS on top of that.
Right. That's what I'm $800 they want.
$800 fee. Yeah. So if you're and then of course the easiest way to do is just to you can get a lawyer or you can get somebody at Start Church to fill it out for you. That's the easiest way, but that's going to cost you the most money. Those are typically $1,500, $2,000 to get that done. But think about what you're going to get in return. If you only use that 501c3 application to get the Google Ads grant, and Google wants to give you $10,000 a month in advertising, you'll get that money back pretty quickly. It's a good investment, and I think it's good for your church in the long run. There are a lot of organizations out there that want to give grants to churches, but they want you to have your own 501c3 designation. And their grant writing guidelines do not permit them to give you money, if you don't have that. And so, and then again, for the sake of your own church's autonomy, I think it's the best practice for you to have your own 501c3 designation. So that, the Florida Baptist Convention is great. We have a great partnership with them. But if they were to do something that your church disagrees with, and your church decides to pull out, and you're dependent upon them for your nonprofit status, you need to have your own. You need to have your own because you're on an autonomous church.
All right.
Any other questions? All right. So this is by no means designed to be a full-blown, this is how you do it kind of thing. But you can just simply go online to google.com/grants. And if you just follow the instructions and walk through the whole thing, you can do it. That's how I did it. Okay. Nobody helped me. I followed the instructions and I did what they said. And now I've done it for several different nonprofits. And for churches that are part of MBA, I'll sit down with you and help you walk through the process. And that's part of the service that we provide to you. But it's a little more involved than this. But I want to tell you though, 90% of the churches that apply for it get it. So it's not one of these grants that you're going to go through all this trouble to apply for. I went to the nonprofit, the Marion County Nonprofit Foundation had a grant writing workshop recently, and they said on average about 10% of the grants that you apply for are the ones that you're going to get. Or let me back up. About 10% of the applicants, grant applicants, actually get grants. Let me just put it that way. So about 90% of the time, when you're trying to get grants from a foundation, you're turned down. In this case, you flip that around. About 90% of the churches that apply for it actually get it if you just follow the instructions. So if there's nothing else, well, let me dismiss us in prayer. Dear God in heaven, thank you so much for our time to gather together today to enjoy some great food and some fellowship with one another. Thank you for the information that you've provided for us and this opportunity that we have to get the gospel out to more and more people and to get them connected with local churches. Help us to understand the process and give us grace in the approval of these applications. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you all very much. Peggy is the one who prepared lunch. If you didn't hear me say that earlier or something. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you, Jackie, for putting this all together for us. Thank you all for coming in today.
That was so good.